Hi there and welcome to Hyundai Power Equipment. My name is Adrian and today we're going to look at the HY4HT26 petrol powered hedge trimmer. As you can see, it comes nicely packaged and I'm going to lay the box contents out on the table for you to see. So first of all, we have the hedge trimmer itself with the blade guard fitted. The oil filler bottle, we shall go through that a little later. A box spanner, a Torx type Allen key and a comprehensive user manual. Now I do recommend that you read the user manual thoroughly before use. And that's the contents of the packaging. This being a 4-stroke engine, we need to fill it with engine oil. So using the filler jug provided, or measuring jug, I carefully filled it up to the 60 milliliter line. Now the engine oil you need to use is a semi-synthetic SAE 10W30 engine oil. So having filled the jug to the correct level, I'm now going to put it into the sump of the engine. The filler plug is here on the left hand side of the engine from the handle end, and I'm going to remove it and pour the engine oil carefully and slowly into here. I shall show you that next. So to fill the engine oil correctly to the correct level, we need to put the machine on level ground. My table is doing the job in this instance. So we unscrew the filler plug anti-clockwise and remove it. Now you will notice that there are residual amounts of engine oil in the bottom of this filler. That's because the engine will have been run at the factory to test it. All the engine oil will have been removed at the factory, but there may be residual amounts. So gradually and slowly pour in the 60 milliliters of engine oil until you get to the top of the filler. Now, if it were completely empty, the 60 milliliters will be perfect. Keep filling it slowly and it will gradually run into the bottom of the engine. You can sort of fill this little reservoir and then tip it over and let it run in a bit to do it a bit quicker. But a little bit of patience is needed here, and gradually pour the 60 milliliters into this spot. When you put it back on level ground, engine oil should not be overflowing. If it is, just tip a little bit out until it stops flowing out of the top. And it should stop at a level a couple of millimeters from the top of this plastic. So having filled it to the correct level with the engine oil and replaced the cap, I would recommend that you check that level daily or before each use, just to make sure that it's always got sufficient engine oil. So let's move on to filling the fuel tank with fresh unleaded petrol. Now let's start by saying never fill the engine with fuel when the engine is hot. Should you spill some fuel, there is a likelihood that you could splash it on what will be a hot exhaust and you could have a fire on your hands. So allow the engine to cool thoroughly before filling with fuel. So firstly, remove the fuel filler cap by turning it anti-clockwise and you can simply pull it out of the way. Now using fresh unleaded fuel, you can fill the fuel tank up to this level here, no more than that, which is the top of the large part of the tank. Don't fill it all the way up the filler neck, as this won't allow room for the expansion of the fuel. So leave 25 to 30 millimeters on the top here of clearance of fresh air and fill the rest of it up with fresh unleaded petrol. Once you've filled it, simply replace the filler cap and tighten it down. It's probably best that you do this on level ground, and then you will get an idea of the fuel level as you're filling it. And that will be the fuel filled. So before starting the machine, I'll talk you through a few functions of the machine itself. Now this handle on the back is the trigger lock. If this is not pushed down, you can't pull the throttle trigger. So push down on the lock and then the throttle will activate. If you don't push down on that, the trigger is locked. So to operate the trigger, you need to squeeze down on the top and pull the trigger to rev the engine up. So that's the throttle and trigger lock. There is a button here on the top which allows you to rotate the handle through 90 degrees in both directions. I'll show you that way, and you can also have it that way. So if you were hedge trimming up and you were a right-handed person, you were cutting a hedge, you would have the handle that way and it would be a lot more comfortable than a conventionally positioned handle. So I'll just put the handle back to upright. So the button on the top here releases the main handle, allowing it to rotate. On the handle here we have the start-stop switch. Back towards the operator you'll see the letter stop. That is stopped. To start the machine you will need to push down on the letter 1, which is the on, and to stop it back there. So that's everything on the handle end. So let's talk about the two functions on the carburetor itself. First of all, we have the fuel primer bulb, which is located on the underside here. Now, on initial fueling, when you've just fueled the machine, you will need to push this fuel primer bulb like so, probably several times, let's say 7, or until you see this primer bulb completely full with fuel. So that's priming the carburetor. The second function on the carburetor is the choke, and the choke is this blue button here, which you need to press when you're doing a cold start, and it simply presses down like so. If you pull the trigger at any time, the choke will actually switch back off again, and that is how you switch off the choke. So next, now that we know all the different features, we'll move on to the starting procedure. So let's move on to the starting procedure for your hedge trimmer. First of all, we'll do the procedure for a cold start, so if it is stone cold. First thing I will need to do is to switch the engine to the on position. So by using the little red rocker switch, pushing the front of it down towards the handle will be the on position. Second step, to prime the carburetor, as I discussed earlier, by pushing the primer bulb several times until the primer bulb is full of fuel. The next step will be to turn the choke on. The choke is located here on the top of the carburetor, as I showed you earlier, and simply push the choke button down. Don't touch the throttle at this stage because, as you can see, it will turn the choke back off. So simply push down on the choke. Now I've left the guard on the blades up until this point because they are sharp, and obviously when the guard is on there's less likelihood of cutting yourself. So now it's ready to pull start. So I've switched the engine on, I've got the choke on, I've primed the carburetor, and now I can pull start the engine. I've got no fuel and oil in this one, but once the engine starts, allow it to idle for 10 seconds or so with the choke still on, then pull on the throttle, it will turn the choke off, and then the engine is ready to use. When you come to stop the engine, allow it to idle for 10 seconds or so, 10 to 20 seconds to let it all cool down, and then simply stop it by switching off on the stop switch. If the engine is warm and you want to do a hot start, again, exactly the same procedure, but firstly switch it on the start switch. As long as the carburetor is already primed, it will be because you've just used it. Don't switch the choke on this time, and again 2 or 3 pulls and start the engine. Again, allow it to idle for 10 seconds or so, and then it's ready for use when you rev it up. Okay, to stop it, again switch it off after allowing to idle for 20 seconds on the stop switch on the handle. And that's the start-stop procedure for a hot and cold start of your hedge trimmer. Well, I do hope you found this demonstration useful. For more information on this or any of our other products, simply visit www.hyundaipowerequipment.co.uk. I've been Adrian, and happy gardening.